Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Katarina. I am super excited about today's video. So today's video is going to be my January update for my Shop My Shadows series, and I'm also going to pick the new eyeshadows for February. So in 2019 my project what comes to eyeshadows is to rotate through my whole eyeshadow collection so that in 2020 I have used all of my eyeshadows at least once, and also if there are shadows that I don't like in my collection, I want to declutter those. I will link the intro video down to description box. In that video I'm explaining this a little bit better and I'm telling kind of like my reasons and how I'm doing this. But basically I will each month pick some eyeshadows to my rotation. I must say that it has been super fun to do this. It's very different from what I got used to in 2018. In 2018 I did a Pantat palette from April, and I'm actually going to do the Pantat palette till April this year, but the Pantat palette is no longer my main focus. In the end of 2018 I only had few go-to looks. I was quite busy with my work and I really didn't have that much time to think about different looks, and you know, I had my go-to looks and I was happy with them. I know that kind of thing doesn't work for everyone, but for me it works, especially when I am busy. And you know, it was very different now that I had so much more options what I could do with my eye look. And I must say that I was kind of confused for the first couple of weeks of the year. I really didn't know what kind of looks I would do, and it was a little bit weird, but at the same time it was fun. And I have really been enjoying this. After the first couple of weeks I really got into this, and I'm so excited that this year I will be able to play with all of my eyeshadows. So let's first talk about my Pantat palette, because I talked about this already and I'm not going to talk about this too much. I did film already my Pantat palette update, so I will link it down below if you want to hear more my thoughts about this palette during the last month. But I am panning the BX Cosmetics Carli Bybel palette, and when we came to January I did have 5 eyeshadows here. I did use up one eyeshadow, there was not much of it left, but it is one eyeshadow gone, and all of the other eyeshadows I did use during this month. In January I did have in my Shop My Shadows rotation an eyeshadow palette that was also in a project pan. So this one is the e.l.f. Matte for Matte eyeshadow palette, and this was in my Budget Beauties project pan. The project ended 17th of January, but I still needed some matte eyeshadows throughout the whole month, so that's why I did pick this palette. So it looks like this. There is a lot of pan in it. There is a couple of shadows that I have repressed. If you are wondering what these little silver dots are, they are nail polish. I did mark each of them after I had used them for the first time during the month, so I could keep up with what eyeshadows I have used and what I still need to use. I have been talking about this palette quite much before, and especially in my Budget Beauties updates, that I'm really not that happy with the quality anymore and that I'm probably going to declutter it, and I have decided to declutter this palette. These shadows are, in my opinion, nice, but there are so much better quality matte eyeshadows in my collection. And I used to keep this palette because this is an awesome palette to travel with, because this has many basic mattes you would need when you are traveling with other palettes, for example. But the thing is that I really don't travel that much anymore, and I just don't want to keep something just for the sake of traveling. Also, this one is not very new anymore in my collection. I think I bought this in 2016, so it is going to be 3 years old this year, and I don't know if the quality has gone worse, but overall I don't think the quality is the best with this one. I think the shadows can mud up very easily together. They kind of like overblend and the pigmentation is not there. I find that these shadows are best when they are used without setting your eye primer. Usually I like to set my eye primer, but with this one the look will be so much better if I don't set my eye primer. But anyways, that is like a personal preference what anybody likes to do, but overall I just think you know, I want my eyeshadow collection to be perfect. I don't want to have Medicore products anymore. Unfortunately, this is a Medicore matte palette and there is really no place for it in my collection. Then I did have in my rotation for January an all shimmery eyeshadow palette, and that is also why I wanted to keep that e.l.f. palette in my rotation in January, because I need some matte with these shimmery shadows. So this is the theBalm Shady Lady Special Edition palette. So this palette is no longer available. I think I got it in 2015, so it's also pretty old. It is all neutral shadows, all shimmery. Actually, these two deepest shadows are really annoying shadows in my opinion. They are matte eyeshadows with glitter in them. These kind of shadows are something that I rarely hear anybody liking them. I think they look really beautiful in the pan, but the problem for me is that I can basically use them like matte eyeshadows. The glitter really doesn't appear on my eye look. However, I find that these are much harder to blend than actual matte eyeshadows. So that's my biggest issue with them. And the rest of the shadows, so the rest of the 7 eyeshadows, they are like satin shadows. Usually when I go for shimmery eyeshadow, I like it to be super foiled. However, I have been really enjoying some of these shadows. I don't like all of the colors, but some of them I do really like. And I do think that satin eyeshadow can actually be really flattering on myself, because I do have hooded eyes. I haven't really been reaching for this a ton before, because it's all shimmery palette. I don't have a huge problem of palette being all shimmery, but it is something that I'm always going to reach for matte palette anyways with it. Because this palette is so that I really don't reach for it, because it is all shimmery, and because there are some shadows that I really do love and some shadows that I really don't like, I have decided to depot this. I am going to keep 5 eyeshadows and 4 I'm going to declutter. So let me start with those that I'm going to keep. I'm going to keep from here the shade Shameless Shana. I think I had used this eyeshadow only once before this Shop My Shadows this month, and I honestly don't know why, because I really fell in love with this eyeshadow. This is probably my favorite eyeshadow of the month. I did wear it a couple of times. One thing I noticed with my Shop My Shadows is that even if I really love something that is in my rotation during the month, I still cannot wear it like multiple times, because there are so many other eyeshadows I should wear too during the month. But this one I did wear a couple of times. It is so beautiful, and actually it is very unique to my collection. So it is this kind of like bronzy brown, and it has some kind of like yellow in it. It's really unique. The second shade from this palette that I'm going to keep is this shade Mischievous Marissa, and this one is so beautiful also. This one is in tone very similar than the Becca Champagne Pop highlighter. I don't have it anymore. I gave it to my sister after I found a vegan tube for it. But this is very similar. So it is this kind of like orangey gold peachy thing. I really do like this. And then I am going to keep these 3 eyeshadows in the bottom row. So they are Envious Erin, Devilish Daniel and Lucius Lani. So I can show you swatches of these 2. I don't know how well you are able to see them, but these are really nice eyeshadows. This Daniel and Lani are something that I have been wearing them previously on my whole lid, and I think it looks so beautiful. And also they are something you can wear as highlighter. And then let me quickly talk about the shadows that I decided to declutter. So Feisty Felicia and Caught in the Act Courtney. These names are so fun. But them I'm going to declutter because they are those mattes with glitter. I just don't get this kind of shadows. Also, I'm going to declutter this set Insane Chain. This one I don't hate, but I think it's something that I really don't need it in my collection too. I know it looks in the pan kind of like a silver, but it is actually quite a taupey eyeshadow. And it's kind of nice. I did a look with it that I did enjoy, But the thing with tops is that I do not wear them that often. So here it is. So I don't wear tops that often, and if I do, I need it to be perfect. And I do have a top in my collection that I do prefer much over this one. I can actually show it to you. It is my only like single eyeshadow in compact like this. So this is from Essence. It's their mono eyeshadow in All I Need. This is a top. It's actually quite similar in tone to the Balm Insane Chain, but the difference is that this Essence one is a little bit brighter, and I actually do like it. I don't like my top to be too deep, and it's just, if I'm going for top eyeshadow, I don't see myself reaching for this Insane Chain over this Essence one. Then an eyeshadow that I am for sure going to declutter is this Just This Once Jamie. I hate this eyeshadow, and I hate to say it because, you know, I'm sure some of you may love this eyeshadow, and you know, people have different preferences, but on my skin tone, on my face, I didn't like this shadow at all. I think this shadow is also something that I have used only once before this month, and I don't want to wear it ever again. I did a look wearing this one and the matte eyeshadows from my BH Cosmetics Carli Bybel palette, and I did hate the look so freaking much. This is a really weird eyeshadow. It looks kind of like purpley in the pan. I really don't know how to explain it, but it's so muted and it's like weird. Overall, purple eyeshadow is something that I like to reach for it once in a while, but I need my purple to be like perfect, and this is just so lame and it's so greyish and weird. Okay, then every month I'm going to pick a palette that is going to be my main palette of the month, and in January it was the Urban Decay Naked Smoky, and this palette I'm also wearing today. I think this color story of this palette is so January appropriate that I just had to pick it. This has been, before this month, one of my favorite palettes, but not because of the colors, but because of sentimental reasons. So I used to go a lot to parties, like I did listen a lot to hardcore and hardstyle music, and I still love that kind of music, but I just don't listen to music anymore that much, and I really don't travel that much anymore. I don't go to events. This palette was something that I always did my makeup with this palette if I went for an event or if I went for festivals. You know, the sentimental attachment to this palette has been huge. Well, this month I kinda had to put the sentimental attachment aside, because it has been something I have saved for those special events or special occasions, and now I just had to use it, even though it is just my everyday wear. I must say that this palette, what comes to it being a cool tone smoky palette, it is nice. It could be better though. I am going to keep this palette because I know that if I wake up one morning and I know I want to do a cool toned smoky look, I know I can get it from this palette. Also, this has some really nice warmer tone shadows too. So there are 4 mattes in this palette, and I think the mattes are perfect. Like, they are so perfect. They couldn't be any better. So there is like a grey matte, a deeper brown matte, this transition-y skin tone, for me at least, matte, and a white creamy matte. And I think they support the shimmers of this palette beautifully, and I really don't need to reach for another matte eyeshadow. There are some shimmers that I absolutely love. I do really enjoy this champagne. It's called High. It's very pretty. I do like to wear it either as a highlight in my inner corner, or I can wear it on my whole lid. Then I do like to wear white base with it because it can be a little bit chunkier. This shade Dirty Sweet is one of my favorite golds in my whole collection. It is not too warm. It's actually quite cool toned for it to be yellow gold, because most of the times yellow golds, they can be really warm, but I actually don't think this is too warm at all. It's absolutely stunning, and the formula is so beautiful too. I can actually swatch it to you. So it's beautiful, metallic, awesome. Oh my god. It's just so pretty. Other shades that I do like in this palette these two deeper shades. They are shimmery eyeshadows, but I think you can wear them as matte eyeshadows, like to deepen the outer corner. They work very well like that. They could be matte too, I wouldn't mind it if they were matte, but I don't mind them being shimmery. But I do have something to complain about the rest of the shadows. First, a couple of these shades are really not that good quality in my opinion. For example, this Radar and this Armor. These are just not as nice, they are not as pigmented. They can be a little bit sheer, and also they are really chunky, glittery. Also, I do have an issue with these silver eyeshadows, for them to being too similar. What I wish this palette had, and it doesn't have, is a lighter, super icy silver shade. Today I'm wearing this shade Armor in my lid, and I'm wearing just a little bit white highlighter on top of it to make it a little bit more brighter. But most of the times if I want to go for silver eyeshadow, I would love to have a silver that is super bright and icy and popping, but unfortunately there is not that kind of silver in this palette, and I kind of think this palette needs silver like that. So I wish there was a little bit more variety when it comes to these three silvers. But Urban Decay is known in their naked line to give very similar shades for each other, so yeah. And by the way, this is my only Urban Decay palette that I do have left in my collection. Before we get into the February's eyeshadows, I just want to give like a quick recap about January's shadows and about numbers, because I'm a little bit nerd when it comes to numbers. I really enjoy seeing different numbers from my collection. So in January I did have in my rotation 36 eyeshadows, and I used up one from my palette. Then I decided to declutter the e.l.f. Matte for Matte palette and 4 eyeshadows from my theBalm Shady Lady Special Edition palette, so I'm going to declutter 14 eyeshadows. And then I decided to keep my Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette and also 5 eyeshadows from my theBalm palette, so those are 17 eyeshadows plus the Palette palette I'm still going to keep. So yeah, I must say I did declutter quite many eyeshadows this month. I don't think it will be that much in months that are about to come, but we'll see. I don't want to keep something that I don't enjoy anymore, and there just happened to be more of those eyeshadows in January. As much as I did enjoy some of those eyeshadows that I used in January, I think overall the color story that I did have in January was quite cool toned. And you know, I do like those kind of shadows once in a while, but I'm more a warm eyeshadow lover, and I think I'm kind of ready to move on from these eyeshadows. I really don't think I need more time with those. So I'm really excited about my picks for February, so let's get into them. So obviously I'm going to keep my Palette palette in rotation for February. I honestly don't think I will be able to make much progress with this one, but I know I will use all of these at least a little bit, because I do have some other shadows that I think these shadows will support beautifully. Unlike in January, in February I'm going to pick some singles to my rotation. So I do have this 1C palette and I do have some Makeup Geek eyeshadows here. I'm also going to move those theBalm eyeshadows here that I'm going to depot, but I do have 12 Makeup Geek eyeshadows. Almost all of them are foiled eyeshadows except this one here, that is Anarchy. It is their regular eyeshadow, but everything else is their foiled formula. And I have divided these 12 eyeshadows to 3 different sections: the pinks, the warm neutrals and the colorful shadows. And in February, you maybe guessed it, I'm going to use these pink eyeshadows. I think these are so February appropriate. There is Valentine's Day coming, and you know, I'm just feeling so romantic, and you know, spring is about to come. I must say that I have really neglected these singles. They are so beautiful. I wish I had used them more, but it's time to fix it now. Then I'm going to pick one matte eyeshadow palette for February, so I'm going to pick the theBalm Meet Matte Trimony palette. This is one of the least used palettes in my collection. I really don't know why, because I think these colors are really beautiful. Maybe there is something in these theBalm Meet Matte palettes that I don't think they are quite cohesive palettes in a sense. Like I do have both the Mint Matte Trimony and Mint Matte Nude, and both of them are like a weird mixture of cool tones and warm tones. I think it would be better if there would be one warm toned matte palette and one cool toned matte palette, but they are how they are, and this one unfortunately is something I haven't used a lot. That's why I think I'm going to depot this palette, but I still want to use all of the shadows, figure out if there is something I don't want to keep. Some of these shadows support very beautifully those Makeup Geek eyeshadows, and also I think, for example, these warms, they go very beautifully with the shimmery shadows in my Pan palette. And then let's talk about my main eyeshadow palette. So my main palette of February will be the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, and I'm actually so excited. This is my oldest eyeshadow palette in my collection, so I was supposed to do a Panda palette with this one. However, I did change my mind and decided to do this Soft My Shadows instead of Panda palette, but I'm really excited to use this. So in February I will have 33 eyeshadows in all of these palettes that I need to use during a month. I think that's very doable, but maybe I cannot do the same look multiple times so that I can actually use all of the eyeshadows at least once. But anyways, that was everything for this video. I'm really excited about this whole 2019 with my rotation plan. At least in January it worked very well, and we'll see how it goes in February. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please put thumbs up and see you in my next video. Bye bye.